You are standing in a jewelry store. The salesperson slides a small velvet box across the glass counter. You open it, the number on the tag is 4 figures. 5 maybe. You do the math, that is 2 months of rent. 3 months of groceries, and it is a rock. A compressed crystal of carbon, pulled out of the ground by a machine, cut by another machine and polished until it catches the light in a way that makes you feel something. Here is what nobody tells you at the counter. Carbon is not rare, diamonds are not rare. Geologists have known this for decades. The Earth produces them in quantities that, left to market forces, would make them worth what you pay for a nice piece of quartz. So why does that ring cost what it costs? In 1870, workers digging in Kimberley, South Africa, hit one of the largest diamond deposits ever found. Stones flooded out of the ground. Prices collapsed. The people who owned those mines had a problem. They had a commodity nobody actually needed, in quantities the world did not want, and a market that was about to price them accordingly. What happened next was not an accident. It was a decision, a business decision. One that would eventually touch every engagement ring sold in the Western world. The mechanism they built to solve that problem ran for nearly a century. It controlled supply across dozens of countries. It shaped what you believe a diamond means. And it left a paper trail. This video follows that paper trail. By the end, you will know exactly how one company legally suppressed the supply of an entire commodity for nearly 100 years. You will see the specific financial mechanism, documented in its own filings, that it used to do it. The number that proves it is not what anyone in that industry wants you to find. Here is the story the industry tells. Diamonds form about 100 miles underground, where temperatures exceed 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit and pressure crushes carbon into crystal over billions of years. Then volcanic eruptions drive them upward through narrow rock columns called kimberlite pipes. Most never make it, the ones that do are, the industry insists, nature's rarest miracle. That story is not wrong. The geology is real, the extreme conditions are real. And for a long time, that explanation was enough to close the conversation. But the numbers tell a different story. The United States Geological Survey tracks global rough diamond production every year. In 2019, mines around the world pulled 142 million carats of rough diamonds out of the ground. That is not a typo. 142 million carats. In a single year. Kimberlite pipes have been identified on every continent on Earth. Russia's Yakutia region alone contains hundreds of them. The USGS has documented major deposits across Canada, Australia, Botswana, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Angola, and Brazil. The Geological Survey data does not describe a rare mineral. It describes a widely distributed one. Then there is the price. Gold is also rare, platinum is rarer still. But if you buy gold today and sell it tomorrow, you got what you paid. Try that with a diamond. Edward J. Epstein documented this in a 1982 Atlantic investigation. The resale market for diamonds is nearly non-existent because dealers will not buy them back at anywhere near retail price. Rare things hold their value. Diamonds by that test fail. So the official explanation does not survive contact with the production data. Hundreds of millions of carats mined per decade. Deposits on 6 continents, a resale market that barely functions. The geology is not controlling the price. Something else is, and it has an address. By 1938, Ernest Oppenheimer had built something the world had never seen before. Not a mine, not a company. A valve, a single valve that controlled the flow of every rough diamond from the ground to the market. And he controlled who turned it. That structure had a name. The Central Selling Organization, the CSO. Based in London was De Beers distribution arm. At its peak in the 1980s, it handled 80% of the world's rough diamond supply. Every major mining country funneled stones through one building on Charterhouse Street. South Africa, Botswana, Russia, Australia. The buyers were called site holders, a closed list approved by De Beers, invited 10 times a year to London, where they were handed a small box of rough stones, a site at a price De Beers had already set. No negotiation, no substitution, no refusal. Refuse once and your name disappeared from the list permanently. That is not a marketplace. That is a toll booth with one operator. Governments noticed. The U.S. Department of Justice indicted De Beers in 1994 for price fixing in the industrial diamond market. For years, De Beers executives could not legally enter the United States without risking arrest. The company eventually pleaded guilty in 2000, paying a $10 million fine, 3 continents of antitrust proceedings, all pointing at the same structure. But here is where the story shifts. Supply control explains why price is held. It does not explain why a woman in Ohio in 1955 genuinely believed that a diamond was the only acceptable symbol of a marriage proposal. That belief did not come from geology. It did not come from scarcity. Someone built it deliberately with a budget, a strategy, and a target market that had never bought diamonds before. So who engineered the demand? And how do you manufacture desire for something people didn't know they needed? Here is the thing nobody tells you about the diamond engagement ring. It is not a tradition. It is a marketing brief. In September 1938, De Beers hired a Philadelphia advertising agency called N.W. Iyer with a specific problem. Americans were not buying diamond engagement rings. At that moment, fewer than 10% of American engagement rings contained a diamond. The agency's job was not to sell a product. It was to manufacture a social rule. The campaign worked on 2 levels simultaneously. The first was obvious: flood American magazines, newspapers, and Hollywood films with images connecting diamonds to love, commitment, and marriage. The second was darker, and almost nobody noticed it at the time. N.W. Iyer did not just sell diamonds. It sold the idea that giving back a diamond, reselling one, or recycling one was a moral failure. A diamond was forever. Parting with it meant the love it represented had died. That second idea was the structural genius. If used diamonds never re-entered the market, De Beers never had to compete with its own product. Every couple needed a new stone. The secondary market was killed not by law, but by shame. By 1990, 80% of American engagement rings contained a diamond. In 1947, a copywriter named Francis Gerardi wrote 4 words for the campaign: "A diamond is forever." In 1999, Advertising Age ranked it the single most effective advertising slogan of the 20th century. The slogan was not poetry. It was a supply chain decision written in ink. Nicky Oppenheimer, De Beers' chairman, said in a 1999 interview that diamonds are, in his own words, intrinsically worthless, except for the deep psychological need they fill. The chairman of the company said that, publicly, the cartel had built a perfect machine. Controlled supply at the mine. Controlled distribution through London. Controlled demand through culture itself. For 60 years it held. So what finally cracked it? And what did De Beers do when it did? Here is what the buffer actually was. Between 2000 and 2004, De Beers liquidated $4 billion worth of rough diamonds it had been sitting on. Not selling, sitting on, the company disclosed the drawdown in its own financial filings. And both the Financial Times and Bloomberg reported the figure. $4 billion in rocks, deliberately withheld from the market. That is not a conspiracy theory. That is a balance sheet entry. The mechanism had a name inside the industry. The buffer, the central selling organization, accumulated rough diamonds during periods of oversupply and held them in controlled storage, releasing stones only when prices held firm. At its peak, the CSO processed 80% of the world's rough diamond supply through a single building in London. One building, 80% of the planet's diamonds. Then the walls cracked. Russia's Alrosa began selling independently. Canada's Northwest Territories opened new mines outside De Beers' reach. The Australian Argyle mine walked away from the CSO entirely. The valve that Ernest Oppenheimer built in 1938 started leaking from 3 directions at once. So De Beers did the only thing it could. It dumped the vault. $4 billion worth of stockpiled stones moved into the market between 2000 and 2004 as the company restructured around brand marketing instead of supply control. The buffer was real, the scarcity was manufactured. The filing proves both. Recall that velvet box from the opening. The price on that tag was not geology. It was inventory management, sustained across nearly a century, documented in antitrust proceedings on 3 continents, and confirmed when the company finally had to sell what it had been hiding. The secondary market tells you the same thing. A used diamond sells for a fraction of retail, sometimes 20 cents on the dollar, because artificial scarcity only protects new stones flowing through controlled channels. The moment yours leaves the store, the illusion drops. Lab-grown diamonds are chemically identical to mined stones. Prices for lab-grown 1-carat gems have fallen by more than 80% since 2016, according to industry pricing data. That is what a real market looks like when supply is not managed from a vault in London. The diamond on your finger is not rare. It is rationed. There is a difference. And now you have the receipts. If this changed how you see the world, subscribe. A new fact-driven episode every day.